Hi everybody, it is November 15, 2023. I hope you're all doing well. I have not been able to respond to Marty's email. Marty, I am very, very sorry to hear about your dog who apparently is in kidney failure. Very sorry, and yes, I do understand, I know. And please don't, look, this pertains to you, Sherry, as well. You guys volunteer, okay? And if you can't make it, don't you don't have to apologize. Yeah, it would be nice to just, be informed, but you don't have to apologize, and you sure do not need to feel guilty, okay? Okay. So, I wanted to make that very clear. Is it clear? Okay. I appreciate every time, Marty, you're here. I sure do appreciate, Sherry, for your incredible consistency. Thank you. So, but I am very sorry to hear about Marty's dog. It is heartbreaking. It's so heartbreaking. And I still can't really talk about Bandit. Buster. Okay. So, hello TFL at War and Linty London and Justin Wynn and Dawn E. Hi. And Matt Davis. Hi. I will have to excuse myself when my neighbor comes back because I have a light out in the car. I was told this, but I never drive during the night. And I completely forgot for months. Now, I remembered, fortunately, but I don't know which light it is, so I need my neighbor for the brake lights. Okie dokie. So, I will interrupt. I'll just talk amongst yourselves time. Or if I have a video that's playing, great. Anyway, hello everybody. And hello Third Eye Sore and Pantheon to Truth and Atena and Cecilia. Hello. Laura Florison, Brenda Rose, so now I know. Space Indian Oracle 11. Hello. Scott. Sia. Hello. Analog Synth Player. Hypocrites Matrix. Mark Williams. Haskasan. Jane Northrup. Ezra. Hello everybody. Mary Mack. Hi. Donna Davidson. Hello. And Cynthia Johnston. Hello. Nice to see you all. I don't know what you're talking about, Awakening Soldier. I'm sharing your links sent by emails. Really? Don't think so. Schmoody Cat. Wow. Okay, so let's begin. Hello, Patricia White and Will. We're going to begin with this. Hospital director in Haiti says a gang stormed in and took women and children hostage. A whole lot is going on in Haiti. An awful lot of areas are controlled by the gangs, kind of like Mexico with the cartel. Heavily armed gang burst into a hospital and took hostage women, children, and newborns. Hundreds of patients at the hospital were taken hostage, but the number could not immediately be confirmed. No further details were available, and it was not clear why the assailants may have taken patients hostage. Well, I include this just to inform you that, well, 10 examples from 10 different cities of the Mad Max environment that now reigns in America's streets. But first, let me play this.
Well, so we watched as you were asking the people, streaming by you, where you're from, Senegal, Mauritania, whatever. And they're all on their way to Los Angeles, Baltimore, Columbus, Ohio. I heard one there. So how many of those buses, and this is just Tucson, as I pointed out to people, this is one medium airport in one medium city. How many other airports and cities are seeing this? How many buses a day just there in Tucson?
Well, those buses hold around 50 people, and right now you've got about 2,000 people coming into Tucson every single day. So you do the math on that. They're running continuously. In fact, Border Patrol, when I was down there, I was down on the Tohono O'odham Reservation, and Border Patrol said they didn't even have enough vehicles to pick these guys up. So they are, and the most important part of all this, it's not even the ones that we're seeing. It's not the people that are turning themselves in, claiming fake asylum, that we're shipping all over the country. It's the ones that we're not seeing, because Border Patrol is not on the border anymore. They are not securing these areas. All of Border Patrol resources. I was there for 6 days, and I did not see a single Border Patrol agent on the line out in these areas where the cartel run their drugs. They run the people that don't want to get caught. They run potential terrorists. Those areas are completely wide open. So where you have 2,000 people coming through that are just being shipped up to your neighborhoods, you have thousands more coming through that we have no clue who they are, where they're coming from, and what their intentions are.
Right. Mayor Eric Adams, I hope he watched your piece, because there's a lot of new folks coming to New York City, and he should have seen that by that video. Let me ask you something. There's something that occurred to me, what you just said there. Because in New Mexico and Arizona, you have big Indian reservations. White Mountain is the Apache reservation. In Arizona. It's big. The Zuni Reservation sits right on the Arizona-New Mexico line. What do the reservations do when these illegals come parading across their land? Because they have historically been quite sensitive about people just crossing into the reservation without permission. What do they do? Yes.
Sadly, it's interesting, because if you're a journalist, they will escort you. If they catch you filming, and I actually got footage down on there when we had 1,500 illegals just come across and turn themselves in. If they catch you filming, they will actually escort you off the reservation. What's interesting with the Tohono O'odham Reservation, it's the only binational reservation in America. It straddles Mexico and the United States in Arizona, and it's actually goes into Mexico. So the tribal members can go back and forth from the United States into Mexico at will. And it's also where they did not allow the Trump administration to build the wall down there. They said that they were worried about it impacting their sacred land. But what's really interesting about this is their land is being absolutely destroyed by the illegals that are coming in, and they're doing nothing about it. From speaking to some of the folks, especially some of the law enforcement down there, it's basically known that many of the tribal members are working with the cartels, that they're profiting off of this, and sadly, they're potentially doing nothing to stop it, because there's so much money to be made on it. It's also one of the areas in the country where more children go missing than anywhere else.
Wow, okay, and this, it just continues. Hundreds of illegal migrants lunge into the Rio Grande and cross into Eagle Pass, but the border is secure, bros. This is obviously just CGI, right? I think we're in trouble. So, let's just read a little bit of Michael Schneider's article here, the 10 examples from 10 different cities of the Mad Max. What he writes, his intro: we really are witnessing a full-blown societal meltdown. Earlier today, a song entitled "We Don't Need Another Hero" popped into Michael's head. Of course, that song was recorded by Tina Turner for a 1985 film called Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. I've never seen any of the Mad Max movies. I hadn't thought about that song for many years, and so I pulled it up on YouTube and listened to it. Needless to say, it really is a great song, and, well, when you listen to it, it's quite relevant today. In the United States today, there are millions upon millions of people that are completely and utterly lawless. We really have a Mad Max society, and the future of our country is going to be exceedingly bleak if we continue to go down this road. And I do want to point out that when people are writing articles or doing videos, they're always focused on, just the peons who are committing an awful lot of crime. That is, leaving an awful lot of victims in the criminal's wake. But the real dangerous criminals are in Washington, D.C., those who are treasonous, leaving us with a country that has gone communist, and it's only cementing itself every single day. Okay, so the 10 examples. Theft has become rampant in Washington, D.C., that CVS has replaced toilet paper and paper towels with framed photos of those products and a buzzer that customers must press to buy them. I find that, I do know that an awful lot of people are stealing laundry detergent. They're probably stealing paper towels and toilet paper, and then they sell them on like eBay or wherever. But if you're putting framed photos of toilet paper and paper towels, then I would think that you're going to be putting framed photos of every product that you sell. Okay. An axe-wielding carjacker in downtown St. Louis was shocked when one potential victim that he approached decided to pray, and apparently the axe-wielding criminal left him alone. Okay. 4 criminals wearing black ski masks recently robbed a jewelry dealer right in the middle of a highway in Los Angeles. Unconscious addicts are sprawled across the road for hundreds of yards every single morning in downtown San Francisco, except when President Z showed up. But this is the TikToker, the video that Michael referenced.
Situation with the race. Every day. And it's like, needles, people
Wow, that is pretty intense. That's San Francisco. God.
Excuse me, honey.
Well, it goes on for another minute. What a mess.
I'm great, how are you?
All right, it goes on and on. So, yeah. San Francisco. In Oakland, a district attorney that got elected with the help of George Soros just had a laptop stolen from her vehicle. How bad is crime in Dallas? It's up 73% through the first 6 months of 2023 in Miami. All right, I don't know these fighting things. What is MMA? I don't know. But MMA fighter Javier Baez had to fight for his life after a knife-wielding maniac started attacking him in the parking lot of his apartment complex. This I can't even read. You can read it. You read it, you're reading it, you can pause the video and read it. In Chicago, conditions have gotten so bad that immigrants are fleeing the city in large numbers, and one even declared that the American dream doesn't exist anymore. Well, that was from this article. Illegal immigrants in Chicago seek return to home countries after unlivable conditions. Michael Castion, 39, an immigrant who came here with his family, told the Chicago Tribune that because he was unable to afford rent and unable to get his work permit, he was taking his family back to Venezuela. The American dream doesn't exist anymore. There's nothing here for us. How many more months of living in the streets will it take? Or on the streets will it take? No more. It's better that I leave. At least I have my mother back home. We just want to be home. If we're going to be sleeping in the streets here, we'd rather be sleeping in the streets over there. It doesn't exist. Even those who have just arrived recognize it doesn't exist. And 10, I could do an article like this and leave. How could I leave out New York City? The Big Apple is being overwhelmed by so many immigrants that Mayor Adams is considering handing out tents and allowing them to camp in parks and other outdoor spaces. This is our country now. If things are this bad now, what is going to happen once cataclysmic events start erupting all around us and our society descends into a state of chaos? If America had chosen a better path, things could have turned out much differently, but we didn't, and so now we are experiencing the very painful consequences of our very foolish decisions. Yes. Yes. Our foolish decisions is just letting the maniacs in Washington, D.C. and all over the country, in local and state government, destroy all good and destroy our lives with it. And yes, what we are witnessing now, whoa, is it going to get really pretty intense. And when it becomes something that's a little more difficult to hide, martial law comes along. Okay. And yes. So, we're talking about San Francisco. But it could pertain to anywhere in the country that you are. Listen to this.
Governor Gavin Newsom said of the cleanup this. I know folks are saying, oh, they're just cleaning up this place because all those fancy leaders are coming to town. That's true. Does President Biden agree it's more important to impress the leader of China than the American people that live in San Francisco and pay taxes every day?
First, I completely reject the premise of your question. But secondly, I don't know what the context of what Governor Newsom said, so I won't respond to it.
So I won't respond to it. But that was a good question. So you're going to clean up for President Z, but you won't clean up for the residents who actually pay taxes. I said it before, it's a major slap in the face. And get used to the slaps in the face because that condition that I showed, San Francisco, the TikTok video, that's coming back. When the fancy visitors leave, that condition is coming back. Oh, they might keep it, pretty much the same for a couple of weeks. But it's coming back. And here, Gavin Newsom admits San Francisco wiped its streets of filth and excrement for Z, but not Americans.
I know folks say, oh, they're just cleaning up this place because all those fancy leaders are coming into town. That's true, because it's true. But it's also true for months and months and months prior to APEC, we've been having different conversations. I know folks...
Oh, conversations, really. But when President Z is coming, that's when the action takes place. But we've been having conversations about these problems that we can solve in a heartbeat for President Z. Not for you, residents. Because we don't give a shit about you. And actually, we kind of hold you in contempt. We don't like you. So that's why you're treated like shit. Yeah, that's what's going on all over the country. So, here's another one. The mayor of San Francisco.
There's one question that everyone has. Why has it taken the visit of US President Biden, China's President Xi, leaders from around the world for action on all of the problems that this city has been talking about for 4 years now?
Well, just to be clear, we have been working on this now for a few years. This is not an issue that we've been sitting around waiting to solve. It's been something that San Francisco continues to work on.
There's one question that everyone has.
Every resident of San Francisco should be outraged at these responses. Well, this is something that we've been working on for years. But we just couldn't get it together until President Z was visiting. Do you see? Can anybody see here what's going on? Oh, government can solve problems when it feels it has to. For the Chinese leader, not for Americans. It's really, I guess we've just been so demoralized and so abused that we can't just rise up and demand anything better, right? There's my neighbor. So, well, I'll do it after. Okay. So U.S. beef prices hit record high as nation's cattle herd expected to shrink through 2025. The U.S. cattle herd will continue shrinking through the midpoint of the decade. Less supplies will pressure meat packers and keep the prices of steak and hamburgers at elevated levels. What's happening with the cattle? Well, a whole lot are being purposefully slaughtered, killed off. Scientists tied to Wuhan lab now using taxpayer cash to do bat Ebola experiments in America. A new lab funded by U.S. taxpayers is being built in Colorado that will import bats from around the world to experiment on dangerous diseases. The National Institute of Health granted Colorado State University $6.7 million to build a new bat lab in partnership with Eco Health Alliance. Oh, that fabulous organization. I'm sorry. There's a lot of commotion outside, so just heard cats screaming like they were going to be fighting. Okie dokie. So, I don't think, not my cats, but all right. Yes, Eco Health Alliance that was working with the Wuhan lab in China So this is despite House and Senate Republicans calling on the NIH to terminate federal funding to EcoHealth, which has for years funneled taxpayer money to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Nothing gets solved in our country. No problems ever get solved. Do the people need to unite and rise up? Absolutely. On December 1st, the World Health Organization will be given the power to overrule national governments and impose lockdowns and mandatory medication unless governments opt out. Well, you know the U.S. is not going to be opting out, nor will any, the European Union will follow, will not opt out, the UK will not opt out, the US will not, Australia won't, but I will put the link into this tweet and you can read the amendments of the World Health Organization and this pandemic treaty, 8 reasons why we need to exit the World Health Organization now. The amendments in the international health regulations make the WHO proclamations, which are currently advisory, legally binding for all its members, undermining national sovereignty. The amendments give WHO legislative powers overriding elected governments, even in potential rather than actual emergencies. Why would any country hand over their sovereignty to an unelected body that can have power over the citizens of countries and override any kind of government veto? Why would we do this? Oh, because it's the New World Order. That is not going to be pleasant. The amendments remove the paragraph to have respect for dignity, human rights, and fundamental freedoms of people. They're removing respect for dignity, human rights, fundamental freedoms of people? Who would be able to censor misinformation or disinformation? Who would be given the authority to enforce testing, tracing, quarantines, and to mandate and demand proof of medical treatment like vaccines? Who would get the authority to roll out mandatory global health certificates? Who would seize control over countries' means of production, requiring products to be supplied as directed by the WHO? Countries would be obliged to provide WHO with billions of pounds of funding, or dollars of funding, for the Pharmaceutical Hospital Emergency Industrial Complex and the international health regulatory infrastructure at the point of entry into the country without any accountability. Is this something that we want? No. Will we do anything to stop it? No. Enormous danger lies in the fact that the international health regulations amendments do not need to be agreed by official heads of state, thus avoiding parliamentary scrutiny. Unelected, unaccountable, and largely anonymous delegates from each member nation can easily change international law by achieving consensus in secret, informal meetings by simply remaining silent, tacit consent, while the document is being considered. This means that, by stealth, the WHO could turn into the authoritarian world government with the power to tyrannize much of the world's population. And mandatory health passports are not only the end of bodily autonomy, but also the end of human liberty. Those who refuse to accept mandatory medical treatments for themselves and their children could be excluded from civil society. They could be denied the freedom to travel, the right to work, and enter shops. Survival could become impossible. Wow. Sounds kind of fatal. Sounds kind of deadly. Doesn't sound good. Not at all. And it's coming. And if you think this is only physical health, no. They have so many subheadings under the umbrella of public health now. Climate change, pandemics, guns, mass shootings. If you look up the list of how, and a whole lot of this came about in 3 years during, from 2020 on, they were just putting public health into, I was like, public health is gun violence? Public health is climate change? Public health is. So, the WHO will dictate what countries have to do, even for that climate change monster. So, okay, these people, they're out of their flippin' minds. Nikki Haley, it's okay. Listen.
When I get into office, the first thing we have to do, social media accounts, social media companies, they have to show America their algorithms. Let us see why they're pushing what they're pushing. The second thing is every person on social media should be verified by their name. That's, first of all, it's a national security threat. When you do that, all of a sudden people have to stand by what they say, and it gets rid of the Russian bots, the Iranian bots, and the Chinese bots. And then you're going to get some civility when people know their name is next to what they say.
Accountability.
And they know their pastor and their family members going to see it. It's going to help our kids, and it's going to help our country. When I get into office, the first...
One would think that she just ditched herself as a candidate, but not for Americans. Look, she didn't have a shot anyway, but the first thing that I would do is develop a digital ID. That's what she's calling for. To verify everybody on the internet. What are they saying? Hold them accountable for everything that they say. All of the nonsense about the Russian bots and Chinese bots, and that's all bullshit. But especially, Americans, did you listen to all of the lies about how the Russians interfered with the election and all of the Russian bots that were influencing people to vote a particular way? First of all countries do that. They interfere with the elections of other countries. That is not anything new. But to make such a big deal, and they were in the cyber world, and they were in the cyber world anonymously, it was our government that suppressed the truth. Hunter Biden's laptop as disinformation and misinformation. Everything pertaining to the pandemic. So, but they want to come after you. They want to come after you. The liars, the disinformers, the misinformers want to come after you. They don't want the truth. That's what they're coming after. And by the way, hate under the umbrella of public health, bullying, cyberbullying, hate speech. Yeah. Anti-free speech charges dropped against 2 men on a Calgary LRT, on the train. This is amazing. So, charges were dropped. They were on their way to the 1 million march for children in October. They had allegedly, quote, interfered with the comfort of an unknown transit user. The men's defense lawyer, Alan Honer, of the Democracy Fund, said, an unknown transit user apparently complained to the authorities, and they charged these 2 men. When they got off the train, police officers were waiting for them. One was handcuffed, and they were both detained. The 2 individuals who were charged said they were having, quote, a private conversation with another like-minded passenger in a nearly empty car. The city of Calgary has now dropped the charges against the men who were scheduled to appear in court in late November. Honer received an email late last week from the city, quote, advising that the charges have been withdrawn and there will be no court appearance. The notice advised the bylaw the men were charged under prohibits passengers from, quote, interfering with the comfort, convenience, or quiet use and enjoyment of the transit system of any reasonable person. The men were still not told what they said or did to contravene the bylaw. Okay, so they're having a conversation on the train, and apparently somebody's offended by something that is being said, and they anonymously call the police and have the 2 men charged. Whether this is just a made-up, well, I think the men were charged, but it's to intimidate the public. If they're going to the 1 million march for children, no doubt that was the activists fighting to get some sanity and morality back in public schools, fighting the curriculums that we know very well. So, but this is where we're going. This is exactly where we're going. I mean, people really should be up in arms, outraged. This is the world. You're leaving your children and grandchildren. So Dutch Since has called it quits on YouTube after confirming that the federal government has been shutting him down and harassing him constantly. Dutch has the live stream on earthquake predictions. So this is what Dutch wrote. I got the confirmation that I was looking for in regards to my shutdowns and the source of it all. Now that I know it's happening at the behest of actual government entities and that law enforcement is involved, I will bow out. I said I would stop if I got confirmation that it is the government doing the shutdowns, and that if it was private groups or jealous people shutting me down, I would keep going and fight on. Now that we know it's the government and law enforcement, I will respect their wishes and leave. Consider this my last post in regards to anything which matters. I may still try to post music if that's allowed. Wow. So, that's pretty intense. Bowing out. We're all being affected by government. You know, so we're all being affected by social media platforms, which is government. The shadow banning, the termination of channels, and all of the crap that all of the interference. I had to download another browser to watch YouTube videos. YouTube will not let me watch any videos on 2 browsers now, Chrome and Brave, because of that. Do I have it open? Well, I can easily show you. Let's see. Because of this fabulous message. That's interesting. Something went wrong. Okay. This. I can't get rid of these. I cannot on every video. Never Lose Truth 1, Never Lose Truth 5, 2 browsers, Chrome and Brave, and no matter how many times, I just click away. It just keeps on going, and this, you know, interruptions, interference, frustrations, and as far as I'm concerned, it's just another tactic to shut people up. And more people are just dropping out, you know. That's another cat, a gray cat that comes by to eat some cat food. He's feral too. So, yeah. And I understand the frustration. I understand, you know, all right, I'm bowing out. But that really brings us more and more censorship, but I understand it, and hell, nobody has been doing anything really about the censorship anyway, so eventually you're not going to be able to get any truth. Wow. So, and yeah, I have to say that I guess this is what Americans want. This is what they want. You know, you can tell what Americans want by watching what they do. Nearly all people in Maine affected by a cyber attack. A statement issued by the government of Maine in the U.S., well, this is not a U.S. website, but notified 1.3 million residents that their personal data may have been stolen in a cyber attack in Maine. The first incidents announced affected 45,000 students this is Global Move It breach. So this group Move It, it's a Move It hack. There was another incident in New York City Department of Education system. 45,000 students had their social security numbers, all their personal information, their birth dates, all stolen. In July, the Dublin airport was hacked into by this same group. and the government of Maine hacked into. Nearly the entire population has fallen victim. Personal information stolen by criminals. Okay. And yeah, we have a serious problem with our elected officials, with the fraudsters, with the criminals. They're criminals. All over the place. BLM, Patricia Cullors, from all of the donations, buys homes for her family, buys homes for herself. Abrams, Stacey Abrams. Abrams founded Georgia Voting Group under fire for financial irregularities. I do think that these people go into government just to scam and steal and enrich their own pockets. A voting rights organization founded by two-time gubernatorial election loser Stacey Abrams and later led by current Senator Raphael Warnock has been accused of financial mismanagement and misuse of donated funds. It's the New Georgia Project. The group raked in more than $36 million in 2020 alone. And so a former executive director, Nessie Ufot, Ufot, who was chosen by Abrams in 2014 and suddenly terminated last year, owes the New Georgia Project thousands of dollars for money spent on non-work related expenses. According to tax filings, her questionable expenses included money spent on Hulu, Uber Eats, Apple, and Lyft. Ufot told Politico, the allegations are an effing lie. I love how these public figures speak today. She was elaborating that she refused to hold meetings without food, music, and childcare. One major cause of trouble is a practice of issuing Visa gift cards to employees to use on company expenses with no controls on the back end to make sure the cards were used legitimately. The group also issued salary advances without proper accounting, and one of UFOT deputies was accused of improperly withdrawing $50,000, and there's more. If you have a criminal mindset, I guess you'd do well in this country. But if you don't, you're screwed. You're screwed at this point. So on a day when the government loses its case, this is the UK, loses its case to deport illegal migrants to Rwanda, it's ironic 100,000 migrants have been given permission to work, despite not having their asylum claims assessed. Isn't it interesting? UK, US, there's all these countries doing exactly the same thing. They have exactly the same policies. Don't you find that interesting? I do. Because they're all taking orders from those behind the curtain. They ain't working for the citizens of the country. They're working for the globalists who are destroying all of us. And breaking, Israel's finance minister says the voluntary migration of the people of Gaza to the countries of the world is the humanitarian solution? Really? European nations. Voluntary? You're dropping bombs every few minutes And you call that a voluntary migration? Sounds like we didn't force you to take that new product. You weren't forced. You had a choice. You could take it and remain working, or not take it and get fired. But you weren't forced. So everybody is fighting with someone. The amount of fighting that is taking place is really remarkable. This Simon Ateba, who apparently has been thrown out of the White House press room. Karine Jean-Pierre didn't like the fact that he would interrupt because he was never ever called on. Never called on. And he, from an African nation, had a lot of questions about what the United States government is doing, certainly as it relates to Africa. She would never call on him. Never call on him. And now, I think he's been thrown out. You know, he lost his press credentials. But he writes, Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro are fighting publicly and may part ways as the Israel-Palestine conflict strains long-time friendships, revealing a lack of emotional maturity and dictatorial tendencies among those who insist on a singular perspective. This war threatens to fracture the Republican Party, stifling diverse opinions and subjecting minorities to bullying by a reckless mob. So, I think I showed the video last night of Ben Shapiro, who he might have been at a private, fundraiser or something, but he was, because Candace Owens wrote a tweet saying, well, essentially, genocide is really immoral. Okay. But didn't state any country, just stating the fact. And Ben has said that her response to what's going on has been utterly disgraceful. So now they're getting into it. And Candace Owens, let me see if, where's the, here. She wrote, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye, when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you." Okay, so that apparently was a big deal for Ben, who wrote, "Candace, if you feel that taking money from the Daily Wire somehow comes between you and God, by all means quit." And then she wrote, "You are utterly out of line for suggesting that I cannot quote biblical scripture. The Bible is not about you." Wow. And she then writes, "You have been acting unprofessional and emotionally unhinged for weeks now, and we have all had to sit back and allow it, and have all tried to exercise exceeding understanding for your raw emotion. But you crossed a certain line when you come for scripture and read yourself into it. I will not tolerate it." So, and yeah, Ben Shapiro is not her boss. Yeah, when I played that clip in the live, I was unsure if Ben Shapiro was her boss. He's not. So, she has a good relationship with everybody else at the Daily Wire. I don't think she's going anywhere. And if you know Candace, she's not going anywhere. And in fact, yeah, I'm not a fan of Tucker, but I'm going to put the link into this interview that he did with Candace Owens, which is, I find, very interesting. I'll play just a few minutes.
And for saying these things, every one of which is proven true, she was attacked as an immoral person, a racist.
If you do know Candace, then you know her position on BLM and the killing of George Floyd and the new product and how whites are now being discriminated against in colleges, people calling for the genocide of white people. And it's in line with everything that we think. Okay, so that was just a synopsis. But everything that she has said, she even said early on with this Russia-Ukraine war that Ukraine is not going to win the war. All right, so she's been right about, well, pretty much everything, especially that, and she apparently said that she would never take that, not even on her deathbed. Will not. Okay, so, and if you can't see me, then you might not know what I'm talking about. It's the new product, right? For our health.
And a traitor to her country. What's interesting, however, is that no one leveling those taxes ever apologized to her. And so maybe like Galileo, she's going to have to wait for her descendants to get the praise for her truth-telling. And we thought that seems unfair. So we decided to invite Candace Owens into the studio and congratulate her face-to-face. Candace Owens, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
By the way, you're about to have another descendant.
Actually, yeah, 40 weeks, but I was not missing this. I was so excited. I'm honored to be here.
Well, so it's a little weird to see yourself. Look, we all get things wrong. I certainly have gotten a lot of things wrong. I think it's fair to be attacked for getting it wrong. But if you get it right, and it's proven that you got it right, and in 3 instances it has been proven that you did on the biggest issues of the day, shouldn't the people who attacked you apologize? And shouldn't someone at least point out, hey, Candace Owens was right about that?
No, I think what tends to happen is they have too much ego and they're too proud, and they want to sort of move on and pretend that they weren't as radical as they were in their stances, and calling you a grandma killer, you know, if you wanted to go out the door and get groceries, or if you wanted to maybe see your grandma, because grandma shouldn't be dying alone, even if she is dying. So it takes a tremendous amount of humility to admit that you were wrong. People prefer to then pretend the internet will forget, and just that they had more nuance than they did on the issue of the day, which is fine with me. I'm totally
it's one thing not to admit you're wrong. I understand it's difficult to do that. I have to force myself. But to attack other people for being right and then apologize for it does seem immoral.
It is immoral. And when we're living in an environment where there is a lot of media immorality, you know, people would rather you parrot certain talking points rather than have a meaningful discussion and a meaningful dialogue. And they don't accept it. And at the moment that they start to censor speech and they start talking, you know, calling you names, like calling you a grandma killer, calling you a pro-Putin puppet, you know it's because they don't actually believe what they're saying. It just, these are ad hominem attacks to dissuade from having an actual debate. And there always should be an actual debate on every issue.
And when they never explain what you got wrong, they don't call it wrong, they call it disinformation, which suggests it could be right. That's usually a tell. And speaking of, so I was out of the country yesterday, and didn't have adequate internet access on the plane to really follow this. And I don't understand the context exactly, but the internet was dominated yesterday by video of Ben Shapiro, who you work with at the Daily Wire, I think it's fair to say, attacking you. Here's the video. I just want to get your reaction to it.
Yes, the question was about Candace Owens. I think her behavior during this has been disgraceful. Without attack. She's been absolutely disgraceful. I think that her faux sophistication on these particular issues has been ridiculous. It's not faux sophistication, it's ridiculous. Everybody can see the moves that she's making and the things that she's saying, and I find them disreputable.
So maybe there's a point in the video where he explains what exactly you did wrong and how you were wrong. I haven't seen it. But to call somebody, quote, absolutely disgraceful, particularly a coworker, seems like a pretty big step. And I really don't know the background here. What is that about?
You know, there isn't much of a background. I saw the video when everybody else saw it when I woke up.
No one warned you about it.
Nobody warned me about it. It looks like maybe he didn't know he was being recorded. It looks like it was some sort of a private event. I got no clarity on the issue that he was particularly speaking on. And in what was said, I can't respond to it beyond what he's saying because it's just ad hominem attacks. I don't know.
Yeah, because it's not, we disagree, or I don't think she's correct, or maybe she doesn't know what she's talking about. It's absolutely disgraceful.
Yeah, exactly. And so I can't respond to it on a level of intellect because there's nothing that he has expressed in that, at least in that short clip, that he fundamentally disagrees with in terms of what I said. But I will say that I'm not going to respond with the same ad hominem attacks. Yes. I don't think it helps further discussion. And if that was me that was caught on a video saying that about colleagues that I work with, I would be embarrassed. So I think that the video speaks more to Ben's character than it speaks to mine.
Has he texted you to apologize or explain or anything?
No, nothing. I haven't heard a single word. It just was sort of something that he said. And you know what? Ben and I have many disagreements, so I don't think that that's particularly something that's interesting. We disagreed on the COVID vaccine. We disagree on Ukraine and Russia. He has taken virtually every stance that has been the opposite of mine on every issue over the last 5 years. So I don't think that that's particularly remarkable.
Vaccine. Really, I didn't remember that.
Yeah, he was pro the COVID vaccine. I was anti the vaccine. We were all idiots for not getting the vaccine. So that's totally fine. I am totally open to people having a difference in opinion.
Right.
I would hope that amongst colleagues that it would always be civil disagreement, and I would never in a private event stand on a table and talk badly about Ben.
It's a little weird. So he was on the left on those three biggest issues of our time, is what you're saying?
He has converted his opinions. He's accepted responsibility. He said, I was wrong about the vaccine.
Oh, good.
He is, obviously pro pharma. His mom's a doctor. And I say to people, I'm very aware of my perspectives on big pharma, and I talk about it on my show openly. And I think that that's a tremendous credit to the Daily Wire that they allow a difference of opinions. But I as I said, hope that it would remain respectful and that you wouldn't throw your colleagues under a bus, so to speak, in a private setting.
I think that's fair. And just for clarity, because I really don't know, is he your boss?
I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about Ben's involvement. He's not the CEO of the Daily Wire. He is not making the day decisions of the Daily Wire. And I do want to make it very clear because people are like, how could you possibly stay at Daily Wire after this? I have a very good relationship with the co-CEOs of the Daily Wire. Especially right now, the acting CEO is Caleb Robinson. He's a wonderful person. He's worked very hard to be where he's at. We have a lot in common that we connect on. And so...
Okay, so she goes on. It's actually very interesting. I like Candace Owens. And I'm sure, she's famous. Therefore, she is part of the globalist crowd. I don't buy that stuff. I frankly think she's got a lot of grace, and she's got a really good mind, and she's incredibly articulate, especially on an awful lot of issues that we need people to be articulate on. Do I like the fact that she's still very stuck in the matrix in terms of if we vote for the right guy, we'll get somewhere, but she takes a lot of people to task. And, Ben is a rabid Zionist. So I'm not surprised at his, surprised that he threw Candace Owens under the bus for nothing, really. Nothing, So it just feels like this issue has always caused an awful lot of consternation and conflict and arguments and fighting and you're this, you're that. Okay. But people are just fighting. It just feels like when you think about the electromagnetic frequencies that literally cause stress that you may not feel, that stress is operating in people. And when people are under chronic stress, as they are, now a whole lot of people know that they're chronically stressed because of their finances, because of losing jobs, because of losing homes due to fires or flooding or whatever, or, rent skyrocketing, and now I'm going homeless. Okay, that kind of stress, people begin to take notice of the effect that is taking place. But we are all stressed, all of us. You're staring at that cell phone, the Wi-Fi, all of the cell towers, the extremely low frequencies, the Doppler radar blasting away. We are chronically stressed. So we see an awful lot of people who are reacting in ways that we did not see decades ago, but they don't realize it. You know, they can't, if they're not educated about the effect of these electromagnetic frequencies, they're just going to be responding and reacting and causing an awful lot of chaos themselves, when we really need to be at our best and have that self-awareness and be informed about all of the stressors in our environment so that we can do our best to remain calm. So, yeah, I mean, every day now, you know, you go on Twitter, you see all of the arguments between people, the articles, the videos, everybody is causing a chaos, even individuals in their relationships, causing more and more chaos. The energy is really not very good. In fact, it's piss poor. That's what we all have manifested. Okay. So I've said this before. I've said it numerous times. We fund Hamas. Israel funds Hamas. We fund Israel. Now we have another war, funding both sides. We funded Hamas $150 million after the October 7 attacks. And people can't seem to, put that into the equation when they're thinking about this so-called conflict, this genocide that is taking place. They can't factor that in. That's unfortunate because if we're funding both sides, clearly we want this to continue. And it's not just this organic war that suddenly erupted. It's all orchestrated. It's a false flag that continues every single day. U.S. releases video of reported strike on weapons storage facility in Syria. We're blowing. This is in Syria. We shouldn't be in Syria. We're stealing their oil and we're attacking them still. And then we get all pissy when they attack back. It's like, really? Wow. So, would we even know if we're in the beginnings of the official World War III? Because this is expanding to different countries. Not good. So, also, the World Health Organization. It's important to note that the UK government continues to refuse Freedom of Information requests to name the MPs negotiating the pandemic treaty and the international health regulatory amendments. Negotiating now in total secrecy without scrutiny. Well, this was misorganized. I apologize for that. But here, access to information request reveals Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine contract with Canada. Within the contract dated October 26, 2020, page 18, it states that the purchaser further acknowledges that the long-term effects and efficacy of the new product are not currently known, and that there may be adverse effects of the new product that are not currently known. Furthermore, to the extent applicable, the purchaser acknowledges that the product shall not be serialized. Wow. And you can get this at this link. So they acknowledged to your government in Canada that there were those adverse effects that they, well, too bad for you. And too bad for an awful lot of people. Keep the F out of Scotland, you parasite. Thanks to the work of Bill Gates and others, soon absolutely everything we consume, from vegetables to dairy to meat, will contain this, whether we like it or not. Okay? I can't even listen to that voice, so forget it. Ghost buses uncovered, filled with FBI agents dressed as Trump supporters on January 6th. Truth is slow, but it keeps moving forward. Your day is coming, Mr. Ray.
Now recognize Mr.
May I
Ray.
close this statement, Mr.
No,
Chairman?
I think your time is expired, Mr.
I note that other members across the aisle have been granted time, and I object to my question being closed. This is a very significant hearing, Mr. Chairman, and these buses are nefarious in nature and were filled with FBI informants dressed as Trump supporters and deployed onto our Capitol on January 6th. Your day is coming, Mr. Ray.
Now recognize Mr.
May I
Ray.
close this statement?
So, once again, more and more evidence coming out that no, it was not an insurrection. It was brought about by our fabulous federal law enforcement and, yeah, the players, the Pelosi's, and I believe Trump as well. I'm sorry, but Trump is a player in this globalist takedown of our lives. How do you know Kansas is a shill? I have said this for years and years. You put a comment about people being shills, I want the evidence. I'd like the evidence. Well, it's my opinion. But you influence other people based on your opinion, and you don't have any facts or evidence to back it up? Well, you're just like all of the rest, who are just throwing out their opinion and don't care about facts or evidence anymore. It is not fair to people. I would appreciate people. You can leave that, but back it up, back up your claims with some evidence, please. So, well, let me take you to my new browser. This was in Ohio, a major crash between a bus and a semi. Which actually happened 2 days ago. And I think 3 people died. Bus had, I think high school students. Boy, when we have accidents today, they're not just, irregular accident. I mean, it's major. So, let's see, Lillian, it's divide and conquer. You think that's evidence? Do you think
I wish for the amazing
Candace is a shill? Wildfires are back in southeast Kentucky. I swear, these lines, I can't definitively say that these are nanobots activated, for fires or, but it sure does look it. Or the plasma fires that erupt underneath the ground. But Lillian, you say stay together, family. You're the one who's creating the divide and conquer when you throw out comments like that and you can't back them up with any evidence. Okay? So, I don't know what that is, but this is the Ohio. So wrong? Yeah, I'd say it's so wrong for sure. Let me pull this out. Why isn't? Oh.
This is so wrong.
Hey,
Mad Max lawlessness. Flash mob burglars hit 2 convenience stores, steal $17,000 worth of goods. Wow. And here, again, I'm going to say that be very aware of your surroundings, even on your own property. So this is a family tied up, assaulted during Philadelphia home invasion. Safe and guns stolen. So the family is literally being brought back inside. There's a little child right there. And just be very careful. Mad Max society. I'm going to pass this along, the link to this interview with Scotland's, the wife of Scotland's first minister, who is Palestinian. And her family is in Palestine. So, of course, she's calling for a ceasefire, right? But it was very interesting. Her parents in Gaza facing an impossible decision. How she has been affected by all of this, the media coverage. Childhood memories of Gaza. We've been dehumanized. Rishi Sunak. Palestinian identity, conversations with her children. What should the world take away from all of this? There's an awful lot of people who, listening to all those who are saying never a ceasefire, they're all terrorists. Is this woman a terrorist? No. Considering that her husband is the first minister of Scotland.
The diseases of...
Frankly, all of our governments are terrorists, but I wouldn't claim that Scotland is a terrorist government. Though, yeah, they're terrorists to the people in Scotland because they're bringing about an awful lot of policies that are destroying the Scots' lives. But, yeah, it's really, I feel, I'm Scottish, actually. Well, I was the first born American, but my entire family all come from Scotland. But I'm heartbroken by what's happening, listening to people who are saying the most vile things about a whole people. And if anybody has been watching me for a while, you know how I feel about people who say about a whole people, throwing them all under the bus. That is such low thinking. It's so, but I'm just passing this along because I thought that it was an interesting talk. Oh, I didn't mean to keep this in. Now I have to, all right, just to explain, I was looking on YouTube for how to change a headlight. My headlight is out on my car. I think I mentioned this in the beginning, but if I'm pulled over, I don't have a registration ticket. I don't have a sticker. I don't have a registration. I have proof. No, I have proof that I paid the first year. I don't have proof that I paid the second year. And I'm going to be driving. So I hope I can find a headlight for my car. And it looks kind of easy, but I wish I had somebody in my life that I could just say, do me a favor, please, and change my headlight, because I don't want to be doing anything that, let's just say, stress and everything that I've been dealing with has leveled my confidence. And I don't like that at all. So, at least 4 more attacks on U.S. forces since latest U.S. airstrikes in Syria. We shouldn't be in Syria. How many times do I have to say this? You know, we are literally stealing their oil. That's why we have wars with countries. We steal their resources. Americans should not be feeling good about themselves. But, you know, we are having, you know, these attacks, Iraq, Syria, and it seems to be spiraling out of, well, control for us, but control for them. And 100 State Department officials sign dissent memo saying Biden complicit in genocide. Good. But what is so different about this? I guess it's the obviousness of the genocide. Now it's up to 4,700 children who have been killed. But in all of the other wars that were still in Syria, Libya was, you want to talk shocking evil? Come to you by Americans. You know, this kind of evil has been going on for a very, very long time. So, I'm glad people are finally speaking out, but we don't have enough. We need everybody to be speaking out. And there's an awful lot of people who are rah, rah, no ceasefire, Israel, you go, kill more. What? No. So, and yeah, this no ceasefire, largest pro-Israel rally in world held in D.C. And the president of Israel addressed the crowd via live video feed. He said people from all over the U.S. and world were in D.C. to march for the babies, the boys and girls, women and men viciously held hostage by Hamas. Hamas has already, very early on, has said ceasefire for hostages. Nope, we're not going to do that. I think Qatar had negotiated the release of 50 hostages, and that was an article that I read just today. But we don't hear much about the hostages coming from these Israeli government officials, except for the live feed coming in for this protest. Here, to march for the right of every Jew to live proudly and safely in America, in Israel, and all over the world. There's not going to be individuals of any race, religion, nationality, ethnicity, even gender, who are going to be safe from violence, ever. And I find it interesting that what the Israeli military is doing right now is making Jews less safe on a daily basis. Because, well, when you have an awful lot of people who have a thinking process that hits the low ground, right? And they get angry at what's going on, and they're pro-Palestine, then they hate Jews. Then they want to, go and attack Jews. That's low-level thinking. We've got a lot of them. So as this continues, and more Palestinians are killed off, more and more people get angry at Jews. It makes Israelis and Jews less safe. Wow. And here, Israel, what we are doing in Gaza, we can do in Beirut, Lebanon, going after Hezbollah. That's a nice threat. The Israeli defense minister threatened to launch a war in Lebanon that would resemble the military operations in Gaza. Israel forces have waged a brutal assault and blockade of the enclave. Tel Aviv's bombing has killed over 11,000 Palestinian civilians, including 4,000 plus children. The White House is concerned that if Israel goes to war in Lebanon, it will provoke a wider conflict involving the U.S. All we get is war talk, making all of us less safe. All of these people make us far less safe. But the unqualified support of Israel's allies over Gaza is no longer a given, with marked shift in rhetoric. Perhaps French President Macron called for a ceasefire last Friday and got hell for it. He said he was hoping the US and UK would follow suit. Potential rebellion within the UK Labour Party over calls for a ceasefire. And US, man, we are the evil empire. So there's not enough opposition to what is taking place. Here, Emmanuel Ardoin, I butchered that name. One Heart for Palestine Summit. I was just watching this and I just thought that it was, I was just watching it. I just thought it was beautiful. I should say this is the wife of the president of Turkey. I don't really know why. I just found that it was just very touching. All the women coming together. With other first ladies. Oh boy. So, Erdogan, Israel is a terrorist state.
Vicdan, onurla bir şehri içindeki insanlarıyla topyekün yok etme stratejisi uyguluyor. Evlerini terk etmeye zorladığı sivilleri yolda kasıtlı olarak bombalayan bir caniyelikle kelimenin tam anlamıyla bir devlet terörü estiriyor. Ve ben şu anda gönlüm ferah, açık olarak diyorum ki İsrail bir terör devleti. Ey İsrail, sende atom bombası, nükleer bomba var. Ve bununla tehdit ediyorsun. Bunları biz biliyoruz. Ve artık ecelin geliyor. İstediğin kadar nükleer bombaya sahip ol. Neye sahip olursan ol ama gidicisin.
And it is. It is a terrorist state. I have said the axis of evil for years and years and years. U.S., UK, Israel. Oh, hi. That was little one that just jumped in. That's the axis of evil. But we're told the axis of evil are other countries, North Korea and Iran and we can't see the evil that is, well, up close and personal. No. That does not mean that Jews are evil. That does not mean that Israelis are evil. Doesn't mean that Americans are evil. But you got to be very careful. Choose your side. Choose your side because it has become very clear with all of these events taking place. But this one, it's very clear. Brazil's president welcomes Brazilians. Brazil's president welcomes nationals and families who were evacuated from Gaza. Okay. Tens of thousands are rising up for Palestine all around the world. Still, tens of thousands rising up. It continues.
¿Dónde están? No se ven las sanciones a Israel.
But again, I say, this was a false flag. Israel was part of allowing Hamas to come in and attack. Okay. Netanyahu et al. Gang. Netanyahu and gang, defense minister, they know what they're doing. They're not stupid. They know everything they say is planned, orchestrated. When they call Palestinians inhuman animals, it's going to enrage people around the world. And this coverage, mainstream media, on it 24/7 around the world, they want what is taking place. A false flag does not mean that people don't get killed. That's the evil, really evil. This is orchestrated and planned. So, is it planned to go into the official World War III? It may very well be. And I think as more and more Palestinians and children, Palestinian children, get murdered, I think we're going to see an awful lot of individuals around the country, Jews and Muslims, they're not understanding that there's an awful lot of Palestinian Christians, get attacked. More hate speech online, more attacks, physical attacks in real life. This is all boiling up. The crescendo is going to be all of us get stripped of our rights. You know, the Israelis are already feeling the stripping of their rights. You know, God forbid they should say anything that is against the government or against what they're doing. Well, that's support for Hamas, and they have criminalized that. You see how this makes all of us less safe? And we Americans are not going to be safe. Look at everybody that's coming across the border. You think a lot of these military-aged men love Americans, and they're just coming across the border for the American dream that most of the world know is dead? No. So, oh boy. The most dangerous words for a Middle Easterner are the American words, trust us.
The U.S. has information that Hamas Islamic Jihad uses hospitals in Gaza to conceal their operations and to hold hostages, and you know, citing intelligence sources, not really providing sources. What do you make of the timing of these comments in particular?
Well, suspicious, to say the least. But there's only one thing that comes to mind, Darine, and I think it comes to mind to almost every person watching us today who've been watching events the past 20 years. Weapons of mass destruction. Weapons of mass destruction. They haven't found a single weapon of mass destruction in Iraq after they destroyed the entire country. And this was based on solid intelligence that was presented at the United Nations by Secretary of State Powell. Colin Powell staked his own credibility 20 years ago and told the world, trust us. There is weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Iraq was destroyed, and there were no weapons of mass destruction. Here we are again. The Americans are saying, trust us. I think the two words, probably the most dangerous words for a Middle Easterner, is the Americans' words, trust us. No one trusts them. Now, in as far as the intelligence is concerned, I think there's something very important that was ignored, I think, intentionally. About 10 days ago, Hamas proposed for the United Nations to send independent observers to the hospitals and to find out for themselves, to look under and over and inside and so on and so forth, and to report about those headquarters and ammunition centers and all of that under hospitals, Shifa Hospital and what have you. That call was ignored. But I think there's still room for that call. I think those so-called, the infamous humanitarian pauses could allow for a delegation, an international delegation, to go in and check for themselves. But no, I think the United States and Israel, the United States echoing Israel about those intelligence. And by the way, I was just looking, because now we're looking at that Israeli spokesperson under some building in Gaza. It was almost hilarious to the point of comical, if it wasn't tragic, that they were showing a list of a calendar, and the spokesperson was showing us how those are the names of the terrorists, in his words. But in fact, if you looked carefully, it was all in Arabic, and it said, as the Godfather would say, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday. That's what it was. It was the days of the week.
Right.
And they were saying these were the names of terrorists. It's
Marwan, the thing is, when the United States comes out with these comments at this particular time, when, as we've been seeing and reporting on the horrific scenes that are coming out of hospitals, is there a risk that this encourages Israel to ramp up its operations in and around the hospitals?
You know, to be honest, I'm not sure if there's any more ramping up to do, right? I mean, look what happened just the last few weeks. The United States has given its unconditional support and said that, you know, Hamas is ISIS. I think there's nothing more damning and encouraging for the kind of genocide that we see unraveling in Gaza than comparing Hamas to ISIL. So I think the United States set the tone from the very beginning when comparing Hamas to ISIL, and from then on, the demonization of Hamas did not stop. Now, I'm not sure what Hamas is doing in Gaza. I don't know, but I would like to see evidence. The problem with Israel and the United States, they continue to say, trust us, but so far, they have provided not a shred of evidence for what they're saying.
Evidence is very important. Why do people just believe the liars? They, you know, I mean, it's not like Americans have not experienced all of these lies being exposed, but they continue to believe the liars, or they just accept it, or they just don't care. But this is the most important aspect of what we are living, because everything falls under the umbrella of the lie. Trust us. that anybody could even utter that, those two words. You know, any intel official, any government official, trust us. And the U.S. and Israel, the propaganda, they're in sync. And the propaganda is truly disgusting. U.S. does not get to stand with Palestinians until it stops arming Israel. That we could even say that we stand with Palestinians? Yeah. Don't watch what we do, just listen to what we say.
Mr. Chair, this is actually the first request for the right of reply to what the United States just said. Mr. Chair, the United States does not get to pretend that it stands with the Palestinian civilians in Gaza. It does not get to pretend this when the United States has just approved an additional $14.5 billion military aid package to Israel as Israel pummels Palestinian civilians to the ground, most of them refugees and children. The US is also planning to send $320 million in precision bombs to Israel, according to the Wall Street Journal. Can the United States explain how this is in line with any of its obligations under international humanitarian law and human rights law, let alone its commitments under the political declaration on explosive weapons in populated areas? It is unsurprising that the stock prices of weapons manufacturers have skyrocketed over the recent period and continue to rise as Israel bombards Gaza. For example, the market value of the biggest US weapons manufacturers increased by over $23 billion after the 7th of October. And it is undeniable that the United States profits from war. Throughout its entire history, there are only 15 years in which the United States has not been at war with another country. Let that sink in. 15 years only in the United States' entire history. But no one, neither Israel nor the United States, nor arms manufacturers should be allowed to profit from the killing or maiming of Palestinian civilians. So no, you do not get to say you stand with Palestinian civilians until you stop sending arms to Israel as it commits genocide. Thank you.
15 years. Only. I mean, that's not a surprise to me because, I knew it, but can you imagine? Yeah, the morally superior American exceptionalism. Only 15 years were we not at war with some country for our entire history. And like she said, let that sink in. Yeah, I hear more sickening claims about Gaza civilians.
Zippy Hotovely is Israel's ambassador to the UK, and she has been doing the rounds on British media, making some pretty explosive claims. This morning, she joined Kay Burley on Sky News and was asked about the number of civilians killed in Gaza so far by the Israeli armed forces.
We can complete this war with minimized casualties. We are trying to do our best to minimize casualties.
11,000 dead.
Some of them are terrorists, as you know.
Not all of them.
We're not targeting civilians. We're just targeting.
What percentage do you think are terrorists?
I believe over 50%.
That's a very specific claim there from Zippy Hotovely, that over 50% of the Palestinians killed in Gaza since October 7th are terrorists. So let's look at the numbers. These numbers are from Gaza's Ministry of Health. Over 11,000 people have been killed since the beginning of the war. 2/3 of them are women and children, and a further 2,700 people are missing, thought to be dead or trapped under the rubble. So even if you take the obviously ridiculous view that every single adult male killed in Gaza was a terrorist, you still don't get anywhere near 50%. But perhaps this can shed a bit of light on how Zippy Hotovely arrived at that conclusion.
I want to tell you something. We thought it was 300 kilometers. As we go deeply into the Gaza Strip, we realize every second house has this entrance to to an underground terror city. So they basically turned all the houses in the Gaza Strip to their own facilities. They took over schools, mosques, hospitals, almost everything you can imagine. Think about it as a ghost city that is turning into a terror city because they built this 1,000 kilometers underground city. By the way, it cost $1 billion to do that. So where all this money came from the generous support of the international community. They were thinking they're giving the money to the poor people of Gaza, but eventually it was Hamas stealing this humanitarian aid, giving it to its own military machine, creating this underground terror city. So this whole is horrific as it gets when you think about Hamas abuse of international aid. So you need to make sure Hamas won't exist after the war finishes.
I mean, look, say what you like about Zippy Hotovely, but she really does have a flair for the dramatic. Think about it as a ghost city that's turning into a terror city. It's a neat bit of Gothic rhetoric that helps you forget that Gaza is home to over 2 million people. Because of the blockade from Israel and Egypt, the tunnel network in Gaza has been responsible for getting much of the fuel, food, and construction goods needed for civilian purposes into the Gaza Strip. But as extensive as it must be, I find it difficult to believe that every second home has a secret door down to an underground city. It's like she's talking about the Court of Miracles from the Disney movie Hunchback of Notre Dame. Of course, if you choose to believe that every second home in Gaza takes you down to the spooky network of terrorism, it's easier to imagine that over 50% of Palestinians are themselves terrorists. This was an interesting moment in her interview with Krishnan Guru Murthy on Channel 4 News.
I'm asking you, do you have any empathy with the Palestinian position?
I have zero empathy to people that time after time refuse to recognize the right of the Jewish state to their homeland, Jewish people in their homeland. I have zero sympathy because I want to live in a world where we can live together.
How can you live together?
But they deny my right to exist.
If you have zero empathy, in your own words, with those people.
No, it's not what I said. I said I have zero sympathy to the fact that they lost their land. They didn't lose their land. They committed the crime of attacking the small state of Israel after the UN decision.
So do you have any empathy with the Palestinian people?
Absolutely. I think that.
What is your empathy?
I think my empathy to the Palestinian people, that we could have had a flourishing region, having the best high tech, the best life.
That's an argument.
No.
I'm asking you share their pain for a moment.
So I'll just give you an example, okay? The best flourishing economic areas are in Judea and Samaria, where you have factories that have Palestinians and Israelis working together. That could have been the vision everywhere. But when you refuse to recognize the right of a Jew to exist, this is where it fails. So I think this ideology that doesn't want Jews to exist, this is a tragedy. I don't think
that's not empathy.
No, what I'm trying to say, that empathy comes when you have the understanding that I have the right to exist. Unfortunately, there were people in Hamas that they showed that clearly, that they didn't believe that any of the Jewish people in the state of Israel need to exist.
So there is no, the truth is there is no empathy between you and the Palestinian people.
I have empathy for the tragedy of the leadership, yes. I have empathy that they're under the tragedy of their leadership.
This is a very hopeless conversation then, isn't it?
No, it's not, because I think what's really hopeless is to build imaginary solutions. What's really hopeless is to think that a terror organization is something that will never hurt you. I think that the imaginary and the illusionary discourse that many people have need to be stopped. You cannot.
You gotta wonder why. And she knows that Israel funds Hamas. She knows that Israel created Hamas. So, all lies. No different from our fabulous American leaders and representatives in Congress. Everything is a lie. Everything is a lie. Oof. Rick's talented tongue. What's the talent? Back up your claims with some evidence. Your personal censor mod deletes it. What was the evidence that was deleted, Rick? I didn't see any evidence. You are a serious censor on this controlled platform. And yes, Candace is CIA approved. That is why Tucker interviewed her. Her angles all legitimize the Matrix. They love left versus right battle. It is not real. Wake up, Carol. Your awareness is horrible. What talent you have, Rick, with your tongue, with your fingers. Let them peck away. Still no evidence. So, yeah, this lady, ooh, she's like a Nikki Haley. This was interesting. 300 cities. Let's see. No more business as usual. 300 plus cities shut it down for Palestine and Global Day of Action. One day ain't gonna cut it.
There are going to be over 500 actions today around the country in response to a call to shut it down for Palestine. Last week, we saw the biggest march for Palestine in U.S. history, but we can't go down to D.C. every week. Some people can't make it. So now the organizers have called on people to organize demonstrations in their own localities, at their workplaces, at their institutions, and are calling on people to do whatever they can to stop business as usual. Right now we're at the BlackRock headquarters in New York City. It's about 8:30, and we've been tipped off that there's going to be a disruption inside.
An $8.6 trillion investment company, one of the largest asset managers in the world. BlackRock has billion-dollar investments in the top 5 weapons manufacturers in the world. Boeing, General Dynamics, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, and Northrop Grumman. And those bombs, those weapons, have killed this incredibly long list that now actually must be longer because there are over 10,000 Palestinians dead in just 1 month. There is no excuse for anyone to be going about their business as usual when their offices are paying for the slaughter of children, men, women who have done nothing except demand their right to resist brutal occupation.
On the other side of town, students at Fort Hamilton High School were preparing to walk out in solidarity with Palestine.
We looked at the toolkit that was provided with us and we decided 11:30 would be like probably the best time. And then I decided that I really wanted to make it bigger, so I spread it to the clubs. And
there's supposed to be a national walkout today.
Yeah,
People aren't supposed to be going to their jobs. Students are supposed to be walking out of the schools. It's not just our school. It's supposed to be a national thing. So
that's how we
first heard of it, and then we brought it to our school.
Honestly, we were handing out posters and lunch. We were just trying to get as many people to help on as we could.
We were getting everyone who had Instagram, anyone who had any sort of social media to just like post about it so that we can get as many people to come 11:30, like 6th period.
When the conflict with Ukraine happened, our school was so supportive. We had posters all over the hallways.
People were able to talk about it.
People were able to talk about it, come with.
And we had charity. But suddenly when we want to raise money for people in Gaza, for children in Gaza, they're villainized. It's a religious issue. We're going to offend the other side.
Just because I'm not from Palestine, just because I'm not from the region, does not mean I can't show my support for it. You won't find any of the true answers, any of the real experiences from people there in Western media. You need to look elsewhere.
Some of the high schools that didn't walk out spent their lunches phone banking Congress. Over at the Columbia School of Social Work, students were holding a sit-in in solidarity with Palestine.
Yesterday, we held a 9-hour sit-in at the School of Social Work where we were threatened with sanctions. And today, we're here because it is part of the Shut It Down for Palestine movement that's happening all across the world today. And we are here because we are going to do a die-in. Currently, the School of Social Work uses a PROP framework, which is power, race, oppression, and privilege, where we learn about decolonizing social work, which we think is hypocritical when we are being silenced on Palestine, which is a colonized place.
Students from across the city were gathering at Bryant Park for a rally. But while they were doing that, I went over to the New York Times headquarters where media workers were planning disruption in the lobby. I'm in the New York Times headquarters right now, and protesters have just read out the names of journalists murdered by Israel. And now they're reading from these newspapers with the names of thousands of Gazans that have been murdered in the last month by Israel. And as you can see behind me, they are completely occupying the lobby. And they're also joined by protesters outside that are supporting them. During the disruption, we spoke to one of the organizers, Ari Brostoff, a senior editor at Jewish Currents magazine.
When we see the newspaper of record doing an abysmal job at their own job, then we as their colleagues have to stand up and say that.
Eventually, the police were called, but the protesters kept reading names anyway. The NYPD Strategic Response Group is behind me. They're the arrest teams of the NYPD. And the protesters here have been reading off the names of Gazans killed by Israel, starting with the youngest. And right now, 45 minutes in, they're at 4-year-olds.
Wow, 45 minutes in and they're at 4-year-olds. Just want to say, keep chanting. I'm sure BlackRock will have a change of heart. It's not about BlackRock having a change of heart. People know that psychopaths do not have a change of heart. It's about informing others of what BlackRock is about. The don't do anything crowd because nothing will work. That's been going on for a long, long time. Matt Davis, Christians do too. Yeah, it's only the Christians that are in the good. They're the good group. Tired of that too. The only thing that will ever have an effect is that if everybody just gets really tired, sick and tired, disgusted with the amount of violence, with the amount of killing, with the amount of murder that is taking place with, well, really specific governments, and just say, no more. Can we get there? No. So, thank you for showing up. I very much appreciate it. Bring your best self to life every day. Be safe. Be aware of your surroundings. And I hope to see you tomorrow. Ciao, guys.